We live in an era where we're the most nomadic society that the world has ever seen. We move like no one has ever moved before. And there are two types of movement. There are two types of nomadic behaviour. There's probably a nomadicism or something or other, but I just can't think of what it would be. The first one are people who are forced to move. Now, I cringe when I read stories in the newspaper, and we don't get them so much in our Western Australian media anymore, but if you actually tap into overseas media sources, you actually find out that 400,000 people were forced to leave a city in Darfur one weekend about 3 months ago because of a war that was coming in around them. Can you imagine the area north of the Swan River in Perth moving because of a war, and that place being vacant? That's the sort of impact that sort of nomadic behaviour has on communities. Now, in Australia, where the movement isn't so devastating, but there is some. There is some movement out of the farming areas as that collapses. There is an urban drift as people are forced to move because they are looking for work. But there's also the movement of people who can no longer afford to live in various parts of the metropolitan area or in large towns as prices go through the roof. And so they're forced to seek alternative places. I'm actually taking a council through a planning process on Saturday, and one of the things that they're facing is that their local government town centre is changing in a dramatic way because the people who made that place such a vibrant, rich place have to move because they can't afford rent anymore. And it's just changing. There's a forced movement. But there's another thing that we have in Western Australia or in Australia, and it's called the whimsical rich. And I'm one of them. I'm a whimsical rich. And I can choose to live wherever I want. I can choose to holiday wherever I can afford to this year. And I asked this at a conference I was speaking about in the north of Western Australia recently, and 80% of the people in the room had moved 3 times in the last 5 years. And they'd moved because they got better jobs somewhere else or there was another opportunity. In some places the roots are a bit deeper, but there is an amazing movement of people. We often brand it sea change or tree change. You put a really nice polish on it, but it's still nomadic movement. And what this does, what this nomadic behaviour does, is it means that people's connection to place becomes shallower and shallower and shallower each time they move. And it means that people's relationships with each other become shallower and shallower and shallower each time they move. And that means that the things that we used to do in community, the things that family used to provide as support mechanisms, there is now an expectation that government or big institutions will provide that. And to me, that's a really sad thing. It's a sad thing when we're dependent upon government for the services which families and communities used to do.